Good evening. A few days ago, we had the school walkout that took place throughout the nation, at various schools throughout the nation, in protest of the mass shooting that took place in Parkland, Florida. And while I support the youth of today and their rights to express their grievances, in which they were demanding, one of which is a raising the age in which a person's allowed to purchase firearms, as well as stricter gun laws. I do have a great disdain for the fact that they're being used to push a political agenda by the far left, which is to further restrict the Second Amendment with gun laws that would not, of any way, shape, or form, have prevented the shooting that took place. The point is this: the youth of today, as well as others, should realize that the Second Amendment was not written for hunting and fishing, but we the people to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government and for our own self-defense. Need I mention that our own government sterilized people whom it deemed unfit to reproduce, also poisoned its own people in St. Louis, Missouri, Corpus Christi, Texas, with radioactive zinc cadmium sulfate in the 1950s and 60s. Lisa Martinez Taylor is one who fought the government under the Freedom of Information Act to document this atrocity that our own government did to the people of this great nation, made great by the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and has never been held accountable for their actions to my knowledge. What do you think a government that did this to its own people in the 50s and 60s will do once they have us voluntarily disarm ourselves? The facts are as follows. 1. Do away with the gun-free zones at schools, which advertise the fact that there will be no one to challenge those who seek to commit mass murder. Note, if criminals obeyed the law, then no guns allowed would be sufficient. But by definition, criminals do not obey the law. Next, your politicians, Democrat and Republican, are responsible for those deaths because they created these killing fields with the label gun-free zone, no guns allowed, and by placing restrictions on the Second Amendment. The age limit to address that is not the problem, because if you review the ages of the shooters, a majority are above the age of 21. 3. You can have all the background checks you want, but if law enforcement does not act when given multiple warnings, such as the FBI and local law enforcement in the Parkland case, this is what happens. And they should be held accountable and heads should roll. But then again, with so many tragedies that have happened over the past decade in the United States, from the Boston Marathon bombing to 9/11, you've had sufficient warning time and time and time again, and law enforcement has dropped the ball on multiple occasions. 4. If you want to make all gun sales subject to a background check that a person is selling from their private collection, that's a discussion you can have. Note that any private citizen selling a personal gun to another citizen can always pay $35 and have a background check done on the purchaser at a local federal firearms license dealer. So, if you think that gun restrictions and the absolute prohibition of guns is the answer, you need only look at places like Chicago, New York City, where you have some of the strictest gun laws and the highest rates of violence. And then look at the mass shootings that have taken place in Europe or the European Union, where guns are prohibited by law for the citizens to own. And criminals there still obtain guns, and commit mass shootings with greater numbers killed than that of the U.S. If you want to have an honest discussion, then you must include all the facts. If you choose to ignore the facts and go with mainstream media talking points, there's nothing left to say, because honesty and integrity and fact have been sacrificed at the altar of lies and hypocrisy to push a political agenda, and you will allow the tyrants in Washington to continue to trample on the rights of the American people and to shred the Constitution and then commit more tyrannical acts upon the people, as have already been mentioned, which are just a few. So with this, I thank you. If you like it, share, and voice your comments. Make your voice heard. This is a fight that we need to get into, and we need to be vocal, because again, this is a political agenda. This is the tyranny and the subversiveness of both Democrats and Republicans to further restrict the Second Amendment and to let no tragedy go to waste, and to manipulate the youth of today into pushing and guilt-tripping the population of the United States into disarming themselves through circumstances and tragedies that they have made by the restrictions that they have placed on the Second Amendment with these gun-free zones. We need to get rid of these gun-free zones in our schools. Our congressmen, our senators are protected with firearms and bodyguards. Our presidents are. You name it. They're protected. Their children are. Your airports are. So why is it that we can't protect our children? Why is it that we continue on this insane road of leaving our children defenseless when it comes to this tragedy after tragedy that happen because politicians choose to sacrifice your children over their own political agenda and personal belief? Thank you.